Good morning, everyone. It is Wednesday, January 8th, and it is 9 o'clock, and that means it is time for Ask Andrew Live. Nice to be back with you after a few weeks off here. Of course, the holiday schedule impacting our schedule and some other things, but yes, it is so good to be back in the saddle. We have so much to talk about this morning. And of course, we're going to leave plenty of time to answer your questions as well. We are streaming right now on the WQAD 8 Plus app. And this stream is also available on our social media page, on our Facebook page. You can answer your questions a couple of different ways. You can either send them in via the comments on the social media page, or you can also text us as well via our number, which is 309-304-0888, 309-304-0888. One more time, 309-304-0888 to ask your questions. Of course, we want to keep them weather related only. As we always say, don't make them weird, but we have a lot to talk about. So let's start with what is going on in the state of California this morning. This has made national news, and this is going to be, I think, something that's going to break, if not set some records here when it's all said and done in terms of the fire situation that is ongoing in parts of California. This is a life-threatening situation. They've had a very strong, what we call Santa Ana wind event. And I'll show you the setup for this coming up in a second here. But the wind gusts all night long throughout Los Angeles and areas just to the west, north, and east have been off the charts in terms of their strength. We've seen gusts topping 90 miles an hour with this Santa Ana wind event. And unfortunately, that strong wind is going over an area that is extremely dry, that has not seen a lot of rainfall, and is almost like a tinderbox. And all it takes is one spark and things start to go up in a big, big way. So if you look at what's going on in terms of the actual fires that are going on right now, and actually within the last 30 minutes, there was a fourth fire that has developed, and this is the Woodley fire that you're seeing in the top left-hand corner of your screen. You see the acres burned is only at 75. That's the newest fire, but now there's 4 of them. Of course, the one making the biggest headlines right now is the Palisades fire, where more than 3,000 acres estimated to have been burned so far. It's the Palisades fire where you're seeing all of the dramatic video and the pictures coming out of. We've shown you that all throughout the morning on GMQC and of course GMA as well. But that new fire, the Woodley fire, that's going to be one that's really going to have to be watched because it's literally right near that 405 interstate there. So that could have some big, big impacts later. There's another fire, the Hearst fire, 500 plus acres burned. That's north of San Fernando. And then you've got another fire. This is the Eaton fire, which has also grown considerably in size. Every little fire icon you see there right now is where the satellites are indicating fire activity is currently ongoing. So let's talk about what are Santa Ana winds and why are they so strong right now? So Santa Ana winds, we typically see them in the fall, and we sometimes see them in the winter as well, but the setup has been perfect to get some really, really strong winds. In fact, some of the strongest winds we've seen in nearly 14 years currently ongoing with this event. So going all the way back to 2011, I think a lot of us remember those dramatic pictures. So what's happening right now is we have a very strong area of high pressure that's currently situated over the Pacific Northwest. But we also have a very strong area of low pressure that's developing in the desert Southwest. In fact, this is the same low pressure that's going to track into parts of Texas and bring some heavy amounts of snow and a mess to the south half of the country here in the next 24 hours. But the difference in pressure between these two systems is targeting this area right here in Southern California. Where you have the maximum difference there in those two pressure systems is where you're going to get the strongest winds. And that is exactly what's happening today. It is the perfect setup for those winds to continue at least through this morning and into the afternoon. Pivoting away from that, of course, because there is another storm system we have to talk about, and this is the next winter storm. But that same low pressure system that's causing all of those strong winds and those fire issues is going to move right south of us here. You've got winter storm warnings stretching from North Texas, including Dallas, Fort Worth, all the way northeast into southeast Arkansas, and then a winter storm watch that goes all the way through Memphis and really the entire state of Tennessee and the south half of Kentucky. That's where they're expecting not only snow, but also ice as well as this storm system really gets going. So let's put future track into motion, and you can see all that come together as we go into tomorrow morning, starting to see that snow and ice in parts of Texas and Oklahoma. Meanwhile, further to the north, what's happening here is we have a weaker system that's going to be moving through Friday morning. This is going to bring about a couple of snow flurries and also some snow showers. I don't think this is really going to be too much of a big deal in terms of getting anything to stick or accumulate for snow here, but don't be surprised if you see a couple of those flurries as we go into the morning hours. Could have a few more in the afternoon and the evening too, but again, those are not expected to be a huge deal. But what will be, I think, a little bit more noticeable in terms of snow is what's going on when we get into the second half of the weekend, and that's for Sunday, when we're expecting some light snow to take over with a clipper system. We talked about this on Ask Andrew on Monday. What are the two types of storm systems to get snow? One being the Panhandle Hook, the other being the Alberta Clipper. This is the clipper type that's going to be coming through later this weekend, and it will provide a better opportunity for some light snow on the order of a dusting to perhaps an inch at most. That's what we're looking at. But the reason that things are getting so active, if you look at the temperatures here across the region, I mean, the coldest temperatures right now, of course, centered over the center part of the country. But look at how far south that cold extends, all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. So that's why the storm track has been more active south of us versus right overhead. I mean, we've got the cold. There's no question about it. The only thing you're missing is the energy in the storm track in this region to get some snow going. So that's why these systems continue to stick to areas south of us. So there's the snowfall projections as you get into Texas, more than 6 to 9 inches possible. Here's our snowfall projections through Friday into the Quad Cities, and yeah, not a big deal. Looks like a steadier snow working into central Illinois. Let's go ahead and also talk about how much snow is currently on the ground right now. And this is a nationwide picture. How this is measured is they use satellite data. So this may not be 100% representative of what is sitting in your backyard right now, but it gives us a good idea of how much snow is currently sitting on the ground across the country in a general sense. And you can see where the storm zone has been as of late. It's been right here into parts of Kansas, southern Nebraska, right through Kansas City, downstate into St. Louis. This is satellite estimating anywhere between 9 inches to a foot of snow on the ground. And then, of course, as you go further to the north, it's been less impactful. You've had less snow as you get to our southernmost hometowns and also into parts of Iowa. Let's stake this in a little bit further into the Quad Cities because, yes, indeed, there are places that do not have any snow on the ground, including some in southeast Iowa. And, yeah, generally speaking, as you go north of Geneseo and Princeton, you really don't see too much on the ground there either, as the sun is starting to melt some of that away. So if you're curious what the impact has been with this latest snow, a lot of it has been way south of our region. That's where St. Louis and those other locations picked up a significant amount of snow over the weekend. But as you saw earlier, that next storm system likely going to take aim even further to the south. Not going to have too much of an impact here. And there you see those snowfall projections. And I'm going to move this map around a little bit because even this next one is going to take the heavier snow much, much further south in the weekend system. That snow will remain heaviest from northeast Texas, stretching through right most of Arkansas. So I hope those places are prepared. I know they usually don't expect to see too much snow this time of year. But my goodness, that is going to be a mess, and we'll certainly make some big-time headlines as we go through the next couple of days. Again, not much expected here. That's what we're looking at in terms of our snowfall forecast. Speaking of the forecast, I'll give you a quick check of that, and then one more thing I want to talk about. Actually, a couple more things that are trending right now in terms of your questions. We get a nice little bump in these temperatures starting tomorrow. Unfortunately, the wind is still going to be here, so these 30s will feel more like 20s. But at least the wind will die down as we go into Saturday. That's going to be my pick of the weekend. Your weekend's best trending here right now. There's those snow showers coming in as we go into Sunday, and then we head into next week and we get another little Arctic blast of air. This one, by the way, will be the strongest Arctic blast that we've seen out of the last two that have worked in. But as of right now, there's no snow signal associated with that cold air. Something we'll have to keep an eye on. I know a lot of snow lovers have been very disappointed with this winter season so far. me included. It would so be nice if we could get a decent snow event around here. So nothing big on Friday. What we get on Sunday will likely amount to a dusting to an inch the way things are trending right now. Staying on the topic of winter, in case you missed this on Monday, or actually I think it was Tuesday that I showed this. This is a really neat tool when it comes to measuring, quantifying what type of a winter that we're seeing. And this is done by our friends at the Midwest Regional Climate Center. This actually is a severity index of the winter season. It's called the Accumulated Winter Season Severity Index. And what it does is it takes data like temperature, it takes snowfall, how long snow has been on the ground, and a couple of other variables to kind of project what winter has been like so far. And I agree with this. It's been a mild winter. That's what the graph shows right here. And there's the category. You can see it goes from mild, easy winter to hard, difficult, extreme winter. And right now we're sitting in mild. This has been the trend here for us for a while. You can see we've been in this mild winter period for quite a while. Actually, for most of December, we were in mild, if not moderate. But what does it look like when you throw in some historical data to this? Because this thing uses data that's been around for a long time. So what we can do is we can actually go back to that data, the last 10 seasons worth of data that look exactly like the winter we have right now. So what the computer does is it looks at the black line, what we've observed this year, and it goes and it hunts for other years that have been darn near close to this black line where we're at right now. And then what you can do is you can take that data and you can project it out into the future, and you can see where these other 10 similar seasons thus far have gone. Has it gone warmer? Has it gone colder? Have things gotten better? Have things gotten worse? You can see there are some seasons where definitely things have changed really quickly, where it's gone from a mild winter to severe in a matter of just a couple of weeks. But there's also been other seasons where it's kept a mild winter going all the way throughout the rest of the winter season, which our winter season, in the land of meteorology, we end on March 1st. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw in the average here. If you take the average of all of the data for those 10 seasons, this is what that line looks like. And you can see the projection here by about the middle part of the month moves us from a mild winter to a moderate and then an average winter by around the middle of January, so about the next couple of weeks. And then it will start to level off, which is no surprise. This typically happens as we get closer to the end of the winter season. But right now, if you were to use this modeling data in past history, you would have us at about either a moderate or a mild winter when the season comes to an end here in March. Now, that's not exactly what's going to happen per se, but I wanted to show this because even though it's been a mild winter so far, we can't let our guard down and think we're going to get out of this thing, easily. That may not be the case. You can see the trend shows that typically once you get into the middle part of January and especially into early February, that's when things can start to pick up around here. How many of you can remember a Groundhog Day blizzard or a snowstorm near Groundhog Day here in the Quad Cities? I can name several of them that have happened around that first week of February. So don't let your guard down yet. Snow lovers, do not give up yet. The time has not run out. There is still plenty of time left on the clock here for us to catch up on snow and, of course, to catch up on the cold, too. And the cold really has been here. It hasn't been impressive cold, but it's been present because if you look at the average temperature so far this winter season, it's only 0.3 of a degree warmer than the average. So that's not been the problem. The problem has been that darn storm track that just can't lift itself far enough north to get some decent snow in here. There's your snow total for the season so far. 2.9 inches, that's 7.5 behind where we should be. And also notice the rain is lacking too. So that's what we've got going on right now. Again, that little graphic I showed you with the arrow, that is a neat graphic to analyze and diagnose, and we'll see what happens for the rest of this winter. I don't think we're out of the woods quite yet. A reminder, if you missed our winter impact special, our winter weather impact special, we did a segment in there where we were guessing, how many inches of snow was going to fall this winter, and we kind of made it into a fun competition between myself, Chief Meteorologist James Zahara, Morgan Strackbine, all of us getting in on that competition. And James and I, we both went kind of on the high end of the snowfall total predictions. I think both of us were over 30 inches. In fact, I'm kind of digging through right now to look for that graphic because it's going to be interesting to go back and see. Both Peter and Morgan went on the lighter end of the snowfall spectrum. They were predicting that, well, we're not going to see nearly as much snow this winter. That was their thought. But James and I, we went a little bit on the heavier side. I think we both went 30 plus inches. In fact, here's the graphic. I found it just now. Here's the predictions that we made for the winter weather impact special. You had Peter at 27.5 inches, roughly. That's very precise, by the way. You have Morgan at 25. I went with 33.9, also kind of precise there. And then James went for 35 inches. So right now, we have 2.9 inches worth of snow for the season. If it were to end, Peter would be the winner. But again, we have plenty of time left on the board to run through. And I think we're going to definitely come up with some snow at some point during the not so distant future. One last thing that I want to show, this has been trending too. I want to give a hat tip to our digital media director, Alec, for bringing this to my attention. You're still wondering about the ceiling fan switch and how this can help kind of cool you down or heat you up. Well, this time of year, we're worried about heating us up. So this is what your fan does. And I'm one of those people, I run fans year long in my house. They are on both in the summer and the winter. We're talking about ceiling fans more specifically. So we know what they do in the summer. They obviously cool us down. But did you know in the winter, this can actually help regulate the temperature of the room that you're in? Because what it does is it pulls up the warmer air near the ceiling and spreads it down and around throughout the entire room. There's a switch you can flip on your fan. It's usually just above where the lighting fixture is, and it'll start rotating in the opposite direction. If you don't have a fan, the bottom of your room where your feet are could be as cold as 64, even though you have your thermostat set at 70. In the middle part of your room, yeah, you're at about 70, and of course at the ceiling it's even warmer because the hot air rises or the warm air rises. But if you get a fan, you notice that your temperatures are a lot more uniform. It can be the same temperature throughout the entire room. So ceiling fans, yes, they definitely help your heating bill in that you're not going to the thermostat and trying to adjust it up and down again. And trying to keep yourself warm. So great question. I love pulling that one out. It is really fascinating to watch. We've already got a couple of questions coming in on the Facebook live stream. And of course, we're also monitoring what's happening on our text feed as well. So you can ask your question right now on our Facebook Live, or you can text 309-304-0888. That is at the bottom of your screen there, 309-304-0888 to give me your questions, and we want to keep them weather related only. Don't make it weird, as we always say. First question I've got on the docket here comes from Zach. How much snow for Friday and Sunday for Monmouth, Illinois? Still not thinking it's going to be a whole lot. Perhaps as much as a dusting on Friday. You get into the Sunday system. That one's got a little bit more strength to it. It's moving closer. That could perhaps give us an inch of snow as we get into Sunday. But right now, it doesn't appear it's going to be a big deal. And if actually you look at the temperature pattern heading into Sunday as well, I can already tell you what type of snow it's going to be. And that is going to be that wet, slushy snow, because we're expecting daytime highs close to freezing. You can still get snow when it's above freezing. Just because it says 33 doesn't mean we're going to get ice or rain. This will be an all snow event because the air above the ground will be below freezing. But it's going to be that wet, slushy snow that comes in on Sunday. Perhaps a little bit of wet pavement here and there, but I don't think it's going to be anything you're going to have to shovel, at least the way things look right now, which is really, really nice for those that don't like to shovel. We have another question coming in from Tyler. Unlike hurricanes or winter storms, how do wildfires get a name? So the wildfire names are based upon where they start. So the Palisades fire obviously started in the Palisades of California. It all depends on geography. That's where they end up getting their names from. And you can see, if you look at the map here too, how this all matches up. It makes sense. The Hearst fire started near Hearst, California. The Eaton fire the same way. So it all depends on their location where they start. That's how they get their names. Also, when it comes to naming, winter storms, hurricanes, the Weather Channel is the only entity that names winter storms. You will not see us use winter storm names here. They also don't use winter storm names on national networks like ABC News. We don't use them here. The Weather Channel is the only place you'll see winter storms get named, and that's mainly for a publicity thing. I don't think it's for anything else. Winter storm is a winter storm in my eyes. Hurricanes, they do need names because hurricanes are far more impactful in terms of their equivalent of what they have. You're talking floodwaters, you're talking storm surge, everything else is more deadly in a hurricane, and they give them names to differentiate them that way. We've got our good friend Brett from Maquoketa in the chat this morning. Good morning to you. He's asking about the lack of snow this winter and will that change? And I'm going to go back to what I said before in terms of this overall pattern that we've got going on throughout really the whole country. The reason why we have not been able to manage to muster up a meaningful snowfall is we can't get the storm track to align where it needs to be. What's been happening is you've had this very persistent surge of cold air. You remember how cold it got early in the month of December. We had that cold blast pretty early in the season there before Christmas. And what that did is it shoved our active storm track all the way down here to the Gulf Coast. What we want to see is some of this warmth pulled much farther to the north. We want to see some of these greens and yellows come in right about here to Kansas City, because what happens is we need a storm track that's going to be able to take advantage of that. Let me go back to my winter storm track graphic here, because we talked about this on excuse me, Monday. This is the kind of storm that we're needing. And when you've got cold air so far to the south, this storm is not going to follow a jet stream, because the jet stream is not existing this far north. That jet stream's too far south. So we need that warmer air to come a little bit further north. That way low pressure, like the one that's sitting in Arizona causing all the chaos in California, can follow that more northerly jet stream and then curve to the north here, giving us that snow potential. That's something we just have not seen this season, at least to this degree. We've had a couple of storms come up this way, but most of the time it's been too warm and it's ended up being rain, or it's been a mix of rain and snow, or in our case, some ice that we had a while ago too. The other thing you notice, this past weekend storm, it did not take this curve. What it did is it took a straight west to east pattern, which kept all the snow in downstate Illinois. So it's all about this curve and getting that jet stream to bend its way up here. And to do that, we need some of the warmer air. What it may end up coming down to is it may be that we have to wait for a stronger Alberta Clipper system. This is the one that's coming through on Sunday. This, by the way, is not representative of the snow that's going to fall on Sunday. This is an example of what an Alberta Clipper looks like and where the snow falls from it. But some of these Clipper systems, especially a hybrid Clipper system that's got a lot more energy and a lot more moisture than the Clipper typically would have, that can bring some real beneficial snow. So maybe it'll take one of these coming down from the northwest with some speed and some strength and some moisture to finally get us a decent snow around here. But the real moneymaker, as I like to say, with the snow is always going to be your panhandle hook. This is the one that brings the big snowfall amounts. It's got a ton of moisture, a ton of energy, and it really produces oftentimes in the Quad Cities. The problem is we just need that darn jet stream to get its way a little bit further to the north than what it's been all weekend long. Let's see, we have some other questions trickling in from our text message, and you can do that from 309-304-0888. There's still some time here before we end at 9:30 this morning. We have a question from Frank in Muscatine. Does the Quad Cities receive a lake defect snow like the impact from the Mississippi and the Rock River? The answer is yes. But it's not the Rock River that does it. It's actually the Mississippi River. So in order for me to do this, I'm going to have to take in my map. Let me pull up a map here, and I'm going to zoom it in really, really, really close. Let's take up the radar map, and we're going to zoom it in because we need to look at the geography of the Mississippi River. So there's one spot in particular that really is known for generating what I call river effect snow. And it's this spot right here as you go from Muscatine to Edgington to Coyne Center and then north of Preemption. And depending on which way the wind blows, this will definitely create lake effect, or excuse me, river effect snow. It's like lake effect snow. It's kind of the same process, but this is on a much, much smaller scale. So if you look at the Mississippi River as a whole here, you notice for the most part, it's vertical. It doesn't run west to east or east to west. It's mostly north-south that it's running. But there's one spot here in the Quad Cities where this river turns and it begins to flow from east to west as it heads south. What happens is that is a long enough corridor of water, especially if we get an early in the season cold snap, that the water vapor or the steam from that water rises up, condenses into clouds that can actually rain out as snow. I have seen this happen several times since I've been here in 2018, a few times actually. And what happens is these areas right here, especially in southern Rock Island County and northern Mercer County, are susceptible to some of those bands of river effect snow. It only happens again when there's an early season cold snap. The river has to be free of ice and there has to be steam coming up from the river to generate that. We've also at times too seen a couple of factories generate some snow. That happens a lot of times if you go much farther to the north up into Rockford, where you've got the Byron nuclear power plant. That can often generate its own snow as well, depending on how cold the air is and what the atmospheric setup is. But that is a fantastic question. Yes, we do get river effect snow here in the Quad Cities. I'll have to save a radar grab the next time we get that, because it is really fascinating to watch that loop over and over again and how that process works. But as I will stand, as I've done many times up here, the river does not kill severe weather systems that come into the Quad Cities. I will die on that soapbox. It does not do that. We do not have the data to support it. And in the theory, the river is just not big enough to do that. But it is big enough to produce its own snow. So you can take that to the bank. That's what I would like to say there. Let's see if we have another question. Let's see. Marcus, I know who that is from Knoxville. Is the groundhog seeing his shadow? An accurate forecast for 6 more weeks of winter. I want to say that I made a graphic about this. Let me get a second here and see if I can find it. I believe when I looked at it last, when I was looking at some of the statistics on this, that the groundhog was only right. I know it was less than 50%. There it is. The groundhog, the accuracy anyway, when you're looking at the Quad Cities weather history, it was only 40%. So not the greatest signifier of whether, we're going to get an early spring or if winter's going to stick around for a little bit longer. I like to look at the red-winged blackbirds. And I know a lot of folks like to use the robin as a sign of spring. But one thing to remember, and we did a verify on this years ago with a bird expert, is that robins have adapted to our climate here in the Quad Cities. They no longer, at least the majority of them, fly south for the winter. They stay here all winter long. So if you see a bunch of robins here and there and everywhere in your yard, it's not a sign of spring. They do winter now in the Quad Cities. But I can tell you with certainty, the red-winged blackbird, that's what our expert told us is the bird to look for. It's never failed me the last couple of years that I've known about it. When you see a red-winged blackbird, that is a sign that spring is here, and it is here to stay. Those are the birds that do migrate, and you'll see a ton of them. I see a whole bunch of them anytime I'm on the highway and commuting. They're all over the place. And yeah, the last couple of years, once I've seen them, they've never failed. Spring has stuck around. So stick with the red-winged blackbird. That is a much more accurate indicator that spring is here to stay compared to this guy here. But it is fun to watch him get, knocked out of his slumber and his rest for the winter. We'll see what he has to say, but I'm not going to pull much thought into it. 40% of the time's not too good. Definitely more accurate, definitely less accurate than myself, that's for sure. All right. I don't think we have any additional questions. You guys have been a great audience. It's been so nice to be back with you again this morning. And we look forward to doing this again every Wednesday as long as the schedule allows. I know we had a little bit of a break because you had Christmas Day on Wednesday, New Year's Day on Wednesday, but now things are back to normal, and hopefully Peter and Morgan will be joining me too for future episodes. Peter is off to a workshop in Des Moines today, and Morgan is feeling under the weather. Morgan, if you're watching, I hope you're starting to feel better. Probably getting that darn cold that I've had for a couple of days now. It's definitely making the rounds, that's for sure. We'll look forward to seeing you next week, the same time right here on the WQ80 8+ streaming app and our social media channels. It's 9 o'clock every Wednesday morning for Ask Andrew Live. And if you ever have a question, you can submit it anytime. Just go to WQ80.com, hit the weather tab, look for Ask Andrew, and that's where you can submit your question that I'll answer Mondays and Wednesdays, and of course right here, Wednesday mornings at 9 a.m. for Ask Andrew Live. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. I'll see you later on GMQC at 11.
Continue with us and watch free now on the 8+ app everywhere you stream.